Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here on this rather humid July day. I'm forgetting what month it is even. It's been such a full month. My name is Esperanza Leon. I'm the head of education, and I'm so pleased to introduce the third edition of this Insider Outsider series this summer in collaboration with Ma's House. And we have one of the artists in residence from Ma's House, Ella Mahoney. And with her is our dear friend Mago, who has been a terrific moderator throughout this series, and thank you so much for doing that. I want to acknowledge Jeremy, who's here in the audience. Thank you, Jeremy, for working with us on this series. It's been really a pleasure, and we still have one more coming up in September with Savannah Lecornu, and so mark your calendars for that. Well, I think that's all. I'll just give the mic to you, and I know you're going to do a terrific conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Esperanza. Thank you, Longhouse. Thank you, Ma's House. Yeah, the Insider Outsider Talks, this is our fourth year doing these. They're a great platform to amplify the voices of artists that otherwise we wouldn't be hearing about or learning about here at the East End. So bravo to Longhouse for having me and Ella here, and we're going to just kind of jump into it. Ella put together a presentation, and so Ella Mahoney, how are you doing? Are you having a good residency at Ma's House?
Yes, I've been here for a little over 3 weeks so far, 1 week left. I'll be here till Thursday. It's been great. It's been a good time to reset and process all of the thoughts that I usually have about my work that I just have to start making and do it and don't really get to sit with that much.
Is it your first time visiting the East End?
I've been out here a bit before. I have friends with parents' homes, but I haven't spent this much time here before. So it's usually in the winter when I'm here.
Okay. Is this your first time on the res?
It is, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
very cool. Very cool. Could you tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you grew up?
Yeah, so I'm from Aquinnah, Massachusetts, on Martha's Vineyard. Actually, this is very important to my work. I'm Aquinnah Wampanoag. It's the tribe on the island. The Wampanoag is a really big tribe all around Massachusetts, but our branch is pretty small. This is down the road from where I grew up. The cliffs, they're made of clay. They line the furthest point of the island. And we have this story that I'll talk about more when I talk about the rest of my work, of this giant named Moshe. And it is said that Moshe was a giant who protected and provided for the people. And the cliffs got their color from him capturing whales, and he would pick the whales up with his hand and bang them against the cliffs. So a little gruesome, but that's how they got their colors. But yeah, so I grew up in Aquinnah. I now live in New York. I'm in Brooklyn.
Oh, very cool. So there's a similar dichotomy there as far as growing up there, right? In Martha's Vineyard, similar to the Hamptons. And could you tell us a little bit about that, growing up native in that specific area?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was saying the other day, we were talking about it, the vineyard is very similar with a lot of people who just summer there, similar levels of wealth in the summer and not so much in the winter. The tribe itself was pushed mostly to Aquinnah. I have family around the island, but it's pretty much on the furthest end of the island. But I would say growing up there, I didn't fully recognize until I started working the differences in the people that came there for the summer, the amount of wealth that came in. I think it's a little bit more relaxed than out here. Still, it's slightly removed because it is an island. But yeah, we grew up kind of working on these cliffs. Above it, there's a bunch of shops, all owned by Wampanoag people. And we would have people walk in the shop and look around and be like, oh, like, where are the Native Americans? And we'd be like, hi, like, we're here. And they'd be like, oh, like, can we take a picture with you? Like, why? But it's that sort of thing where people don't recognize that people actually still live there. It's slowly changing. There's now a cultural center in Aquinnah that's doing a lot of good work and showing younger artists.
Like Ma's house?
Not so much. It's more of a museum setting still, but they do a lot of programming that's trying to bring in the public still. So getting people to engage with tribal people like Ma's house is doing. But yeah, that
so
was.
Did you grow up with it? So it was a small group of, you said about 300 to 600 people?
In that town, I think the tribe itself, when I was growing up there, was about maybe 800 or 900 people on the island.
Okay.
I think there's approximately 1,200 people in the tribe spread out across the country. Yeah, but that's still very small.
How did you get involved to start making artwork? What was your inspiration younger?
I don't know. I've always loved making art. I think everyone in my family is some sort of artist. Like the people I grew up around were making jewelry, working with clay. My mom is a baker. My dad was an engineer, so like not exactly artists, but they always encouraged me to like continue making things anyway. But in the town, I actually grew up like partially on the Cape, but we would come back every summer till I was about 10, and I moved fully back there. And then they'd have like regalia making workshops, painting, like teaching people how to do the dancing, traditional dance styles, and then working with telling like the stories of Moshup that I just told, and trying to share them more with the public. So it's always, I think the arts are like very ingrained in the culture that we've been able to keep alive.
So how's your heritage informed your artwork, these stories, and what you've learned?
Pretty completely right now. I like to work from the creation stories, and then what I'm trying to do right now is kind of build on them a little bit more, to think about like how I can still continue to learn from the stories that were told, and try to, I guess, shape and learn from them and continue to tell them, because I do think that storytelling is a big part of like, continuing the culture. That's how I got to know my culture, was through these stories. Because we were some of the first people colonized on the East Coast, we didn't retain too much. It was literally like bred out of the people. We weren't allowed to speak the language, weren't allowed to do all of the cultural practices that we had. So what we have is the stories from the land.
So now you're able to share those stories through your art.
Yeah.
What do you want the viewer to take away?
Ooh, it's a little bit different in every piece, and maybe I'll start flipping through these.
Do you want to just start showing us some of your work?
Yeah, I'll start showing these. So right now I'm kind of mostly working with silk paintings. I have some other paintings to show too, but this is an image, a triptych I did of Moshup sitting on the cliffs that I used in a dance performance, and I started making these because I wanted people to really experience the feeling of the place, so that like instead of just trying to tell the story through an image, I'm also trying to tell the story through the movement of the image, through me interacting with it. And when I do have these displayed, I'm either dancing around them, they're moving a little bit, they sway, or it's usually hung off a wall in the middle of the room so you can walk all the way around and still like, got the feeling of wind, water, and I think hopefully captures this essence of the story a little bit better. This one was inspired by this saying that I grew up with. If you ever go to Aquinnah, it's foggy a lot of the time. Every time it's foggy in the morning, people say, oh, Moshup's smoking his pipe again. The clouds are covering the whole landscape.
How did you discover the silk as your material?
I was working with kids, actually. So I spent a long time working for a studio in the school in the city. I was working with another artist and teacher, and we started setting up a puppet show for an exhibition with the kids. They made little paper puppets, and we had this big drape that we hung across the classroom, and they were playing with their little paper puppets behind it. And I really liked the way that it captured how they were moving, and kind of like just expressed the story a lot more than if I was still like painting what they were doing. And I'm starting to play with the shadow puppet a little bit more, but what I really liked was that the fabric and the scale of the fabric showed these small figures.
So what techniques are you using here on this particular piece?
So this, I think it's about 7 or 8 feet. I have this medium, it's like called No Flow or Resist, and you paint it on, so all the lines that you see around each shape, I have to paint on this clear resist, almost like if you were doing batik with wax. You're basically masking off the edges so that the ink doesn't spread into other areas that you don't want it to. So before I start painting, I'm drawing it out and then slowly painting on this resist, which is basically like painting glue. It's really slow. All the way around all of these images here. And then once that dries, I can fill it in with each color. This was one of the earlier ones that I did, so I'm trying to get a little bit more loose with it, and you'll see that later with what I've been doing here. But yeah, it's the resist, let that dry, and then I have a silk ink, which is similar to tie-dye. It's a little more acidic than watercolor, and you let that sit, and it kind of blends out like watercolor. Yeah.
Do you paint standing, or is this like on a surface?
This one I did stretched out over a wall, and that I just did because of the scale of these. Normally when you do silk painting, you paint it flat, stretched out across stretcher bars. But yeah, again, for this scale, it's hard to find that space in New York. It's really strong. So then I've experimented with these with other people a lot. This first iteration of me experimenting with incorporating other people telling their stories, and trying to use these and like actually capture the movement actually before I dance with it. I went around and I asked people, what is your story with water? And I, for a grant, put together a video with people telling these stories from their childhood, mostly from Aquinnah, and how being near water helped them or made them feel safe, scared, all of these different scenarios. We tried to, again, like capture the feeling of being near water and show it playing with the silk movement.
Do you have any specific story about water that touches your or inspires your work?
I think when I started doing these, and I tell this story a lot, it's not a specific story, but I have many times in my life where I've stood at the top of the cliffs in Aquinnah when a thunderstorm is rolling in, and because it's at the end of the island, you can see the storm all the way around, so you see it coming and traveling. So I associate that with like being young with this place completely, seeing the water lap up against the cliffs. You can hear it, you can hear the storm coming, and I think the like totally being enveloped by a storm from above and the water underneath you,
Totally.
that again makes me feel.
And growing up with that, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to show us?
Okay, so these 4, this is actually another earlier piece for these, for a dance performance I've been doing, which I'll show next. At the Aquinnah Cultural Center, from left to right, they move from these 4 periods of history, from creation, colonization, our present place in the world, and where we see ourselves going in the future. These were about 10 feet each, and we had them outside for this performance.
So when it comes to the performance part, how involved are you in organizing or choreographing the house?
It's grown over the years. So I started here. This is the first iteration in which the choreographer Mar, she's in the blue, she runs Dance Organica, which is a mostly Taino dance company in Boston. They started collaborating with the tribe because we started to recognize that the story of Puerto Rico being colonized and the story of the States is very much the same, or the continental US. So the very beginning, they would dance. They brought in tribal members like me to do the sets. They had a few other people doing music, and then some people storytelling, and it was all very separate pieces. And then as it's grown, we're still doing this 7 years later. We're traveling with it now.
Oh, wow.
As it's grown, we've been able to incorporate everyone's opinion a little bit more, which I really appreciate in this. I think that
It's totally collaborative.
It's very collaborative, yeah. So instead of having them be the dancers now, everybody dances. No matter what you can do, what your body's ability is. We have people who are like 85 years old to people who are 6 years old in the show. But everybody has at least one or two pieces that you got to decide what you do. And we walked through this process together for 2 years before we even showed anybody. I really got to just sit with, like, what is the story that you actually want to tell about your relationship to this place? What do you want to share about being native on Martha's Vineyard? And so my piece that I'll show again with the silks is about the joy that comes. So it's later, we tell the story of colonization. You hear the stories of other elders from the tribe, and see everyone walk through all the struggles they had. And then at the end, we go back to this joy
So
that they're
it's
still
multimedia.
Yeah. So there's videos in the background, as you can see here.
And do you organize the filming of that?
That is, my brother did part of that actually, he's on
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, artsy family. Yeah, so these are the knees again. Let's get to the next one. But yeah, that, I think starting with the dance performance is one of my first times doing these silk pieces, has been pretty influential for how I want to interact with my art now. The place. So that, like, instead of just trying to tell the story through an image, I'm also trying to tell the story through the movement of the image, through me interacting with it. And when I do have these displayed, I'm either dancing around them, they're moving a little bit, they sway, or it's usually hung off a wall in the middle of the room, so you can walk all the way around and it's still like got the feeling of wind, water, and I think hopefully captures this essence of the story a little bit better. This one was inspired by this saying that I grew up with. If you ever go to Aquinnah, it's foggy a lot of the time. Every time it's foggy in the morning, people say, oh, Moshe's smoking his pipe again. The clouds are covering the whole landscape.
How did you discover the silk as your material?
I was working with kids, actually. So I spent a long time working for a studio in the school in the city. So I was working with another artist and teacher, and we started setting up a puppet show for an exhibition with the kids. They'd made little paper puppets, and we had this big drape that we hung across the classroom, and they were playing with their little paper puppets behind it. And I really liked the way that it captured how they were moving, and kind of like just expressed the story a lot more than if I was to look at a painting that they were doing. And I'm starting to play with the shadow puppet a little bit more, but what I really liked was that the fabric and the scale of the fabric showed these like small figures.
So what
a little bit
techniques
more.
are you using here on this particular piece?
So this, I think it's about 7 or 8 feet. I have this medium, it's like called No Flow or Resist, and you paint it on, so all the lines that you see around each shape, I have to paint on this clear resist, almost like if you were doing batik with wax. You're basically masking off the edges so that the ink doesn't spread into other areas that you don't want it to. So before I start painting, I'm drawing it out and then slowly painting on this resist, which is basically like painting glue. It's really slow. All the way around all of these images here. And then once that dries, I can fill it in with each color. This was one of the earlier ones that I did, so I'm trying to get a little bit more loose with it, and you'll see that later with what I've been doing here. But yeah, it's the resist, let that dry, and then I have a silk ink, which is similar to tie-dye. It's a little more acidic than watercolor. And you let that sit, and it kind of blends out like watercolor. Yeah.
Do you paint standing, or is this like on a surface?
This one I did stretched out over a wall. And that I just did because of the scale of these. Normally when you do silk painting, you'd paint it flat, stretched out across stretcher bars. But yeah, again, for this scale, it's hard to find that space in New York.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really strong. So then I've experimented with these with other people a lot. This first iteration of me experimenting with incorporating other people telling their stories and trying to use these and like actually capture the movement actually before I dance with it. I went around and I asked people, what is your story with water? And I, for our grant, put together a video with people telling these stories from their childhood, mostly from Aquinnah, and how being near water helped them or made them feel safe, scared, all of these different scenarios, but tried to, again, like capture the feeling of being near water and show it playing with the silk movement.
Do you have any specific story about water that touches your or inspires your work?
I think when I started doing these, and I tell this story a lot, it's not a specific story, but I have many times in my life where I've stood up at the top of the cliffs in Aquinnah when a thunderstorm is rolling in, and because it's at the end of the island, you can see the storm all the way around, so you see it coming and traveling. So I associate that with like being young with this piece. This is a piece that's on Shelter Island right now, one of 4 that are there, hung in the woods there. This is a prayer in Wampanoag that's basically thanking the land, the rivers, the sky, the stars, and the ancestors. And I was asked for this piece to think about the history of Sylvester Manor. If anybody's ever been there, it's the Sylvesters were some of the first people to colonize Shelter Island, and they started a sugar trade between the Caribbean and there. And so they enslaved African and Native people, and they just recently found a burial ground on the land. Yeah, so we were asked, and I think there are about 20 artists that have been asked to address this, but I went through and again made these 4 pieces that hang in the woods, and you walk down this path and see each of them. They're free hanging, they're blowing, but I wanted to think about again like how I can acknowledge the land here and what's happened on it by like thanking the people that came across the sea, the waters that brought them, what happened to them there, and then all of the elements of land. So again, like rivers, sky, the earth.
And what process did you use there? Because there's almost like a map on it.
Yeah.
Is it?
This was, I painted each piece and then digital collaged it together. I had 1 month to make these 4 giant pieces, so it was a really quick turnaround. But each of the elements is a painting, and I printed it bigger than I painted it. So they're.
Did you paint it on silk?
Some of it. Some of it's on silk. Some of it was acrylic painted on paper and then scanned in. Yeah, and printed again on parachute fabric.
Is that your new fabric to use when you're working with?
I think it has to be outside for that
Yeah,
long.
for outside, right?
Yeah, I prefer the silk because you can see the transparency a little bit better, but to be able to be outside for 4+ months.
Well, that's really cool to run into a piece of artwork that way in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah, so this again, it's very blown out. This is one of the newer pieces I've done. Smaller silk, this is one of the smallest things I've made all year. Again, that same prayer, we call it the prayer for every time. And then I'm again playing with this digital collage of the images of cliffs, water, and then here I've started to kind of sew mermaid toenails along the bottom of the silks. They make sound. So I was thinking it feels weird to make work about oral histories a lot of the time without including sound. So if this hangs freely, it has like a really gentle jingle on the bottom. It comes through, it's really sweet. And this one last one. So this is what I've been doing while I've been here. Trying to experiment a little bit more with the cyanotype combined with silk painting.
These are current pieces that you're working on?
Yeah, this is something I started at the beginning of the month. I'm still working on it. Oh, the colors are so blown out on the screen. But again, I'm like trying to incorporate more of the actual landscape because I talk about it so much. And I haven't been able to use it because what I'm using is not natural dyes. They don't get that vibrant. They don't stick as well when I'm displaying them outside. So I'm trying to include some piece of the land if I can. But I got here to Ma's house and I immediately started looking at, I was like, I want to work with this Moshup story and work with stories about the whales again. And we have this story in the tribe that when Moshup, the giant, left, he gave the people the option to turn into whales or stay and see what was going to happen. And we say that our ancestors are the ones that stayed. But I am interested in this idea of like what would have happened if we did turn out into whales. So I'm kind of exploring that now. And also the idea that the way that we tell these stories and we continue to tell these stories is like a piece that allows our culture to continue. It's literally the culture surviving. So this was playing with that a little bit more, and I have a couple other things I've started where I'm trying to play around with the skeleton of humans and whales and trying to literally see, like, what if this transformation happened? What would this look like? And how can we transform to actually, like, be able to maintain our culture and have it be an element of strength that we have transformed?
Sure.
Yeah, I also heard this fact that I've been kind of stuck on for a month. I went to this talk on whales and they said that the oldest whale that they had, they dated it back because of the weapons that were stuck inside its body. They were able to find it. Baleen regenerates really fast, so they weren't actually able to look at the teeth like they usually date animals back. but the weapons they found were 180 years old, and so like the whale must have been mature by the time they found that. So they know it was over 220 years old because of that. But I like this idea of like something so big holding the trauma in its body. And so I went through like this idea of like trauma in the body and the combination of the human, my body, the whale skeleton. And I was like, I don't really want to make work about the trauma. I want to make work about releasing that rather. So again, like going back to like, well, what does having to transform mean, and how is that a good thing?
Sure.
Yeah. I think I have a couple more. Getting away from the silk paintings.
This is work on paper?
Yeah, this is work on paper from earlier this year. It's a right whale. People interpret this differently whenever I show them. Some people think the whale is being released. Some people think it's being caught. It's up to you to decide. This is going to a gallery on the Vineyard next week, but I got really into like the textures of the water. It's color pencil, really carefully dotted acrylic, so it actually has a texture on the surface, and then acrylic paint. But yeah, I think right now with my work, I'm trying to figure out how I can maintain like some more realistic style, like I do with my acrylic paintings and illustrations, and combine that more with the silk, which is tricky. There's some other ones. Again, like trying to play with this idea of myself transforming into something else. And I'm trying to find some thread between the acrylic painting and the silks now.
Do these visions come to you, or is it something from your dreams, or how do you come up with these visuals?
I usually just start making them.
You just jump right into it?
I just jump right into it, yeah. I get an idea, and then I have a really hard time working small. So I will usually just sketch something out. I like to sketch in colored pencil, so it feels a little more permanent. And then I'll start with like a big shape. So for this one, I think I literally just drew all of the swirls and kind of built it up as I went. But yeah, it like the idea grows as I'm making it a lot of the time. And so eventually, I think when I let that happen, things do kind of start to mesh, and like what I like to do and what I like in my imagery comes together in some way. But it's not until it's finished that you can see that a lot of the time. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was all my images. I don't know if we're going to be able to do the same.
I think maybe we'll open up to see if there's any questions here for Ella. Thank you for sharing your work. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm curious about the prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Can you translate it for those of us
Yeah.
who don't know the language?
Let me see if I can go back and actually read it.
Where there's two, right?
Yeah, there were two different ones. I used some different lines from the prayer, but this is the main one. It says, Manat wana nikona hachik, katapatanamu wachi sipuash, katapatanamu wachi kisak, katapatanamu wachi anakwasak, katapatanamu wachi katanash, anama anian namanat wiki wanikak. So it's creator and ancestors. Thank you all for the rivers. Thank you all for the sky. Thank you all for the stars. Thank you for the oceans. What is this one? I forget the longer words. I think it's thank you to all of my ancestors. Help me to hold tight to what is good.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then within them, this one's basically the same. We repeated a few of the lines. I've just been able to start learning the language since 2020. When they started having language classes online after the pandemic, and since I've lived in New York for so long, I haven't been able to go in person. So yeah, I think using the language in my art is really nice because as I'm learning it, I'm learning how much of the epistemology of our culture is embedded in the language. So like certain translations of the words, it's like 3 or 4 words put together in one. You'll say, like if I was gonna say Natakim, that means like my land, but it doesn't mean my land as in like I possess it. It means my land as in I'm part of the land. Like this land is mine because I'm literally part of it. That was really exciting to hear because a lot of the beliefs that we talk about, like you don't really get to hear from that many people, like how it actually was, but it's so embedded in the language that like it's very affirming.
You feel like it's connecting you with your ancestors?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you feel you channel that through your work?
I try to. I'm trying to more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I think that's why I want to try to bring in more sound in the future. What I'm doing, whether it's with shells, with music, I started experimenting with that. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes?
Your work is so beautiful, thank you. Couple of things. The language, I'm just curious, there must still be native speakers that the language has been saved and preserved.
It was a dead language until 1995, but in 1995, Jessie Lidodo Baird, she started this Wampanoag language reclamation project, and they've been working on like building children's book collections up, translating the language from a Bible and from letters that people sent around the state. But they're still working on a dictionary for the language. So like, because it wasn't traditionally a written language, there are many different understandings of like how the word was written, how you would say it in different places. There's so many different dialects. Shinnecock is an Algonquian dialect too, so the Algonquian language, we have very similar language from like Maine all the way down to probably Jersey and some a little bit further out west, but so you'll hear like similar roots of the word, but looking back to like where you find each word, I think is very important, again, because so much of the specific places are embedded in that language. Yeah, it's interesting to have it coming from the Bible, though. So.
Yeah.
I just was
Go ahead.
The mermaid's toenails, is that a shell? Or?
Yeah, I call it mermaid's toenails. I don't know if anybody else does. They're the little tiny shiny shells that you see all over the beaches here. And Anadomidae, I think is the actual name.
How does it feel to be at Ma's house and connecting with other organizations that are trying to bring light to the language and to the culture?
It's nice to see and hear about the overlap, and kind of see, I think, like with Ma's house, like Jeremy's doing so much work to like, make the struggles here more visible. So it's inspiring to see like what somebody else is doing and to feel like, oh, we could learn a lot from each other. I could definitely learn a lot from like what he's doing. We've been going out to so many different places and meeting a lot of people, and it's really interesting to see the connections, but also like again, like go back to like it's very, very specific to the place. Yeah.
Yes?
Sorry we got here a little bit late, but I love what you've done. I have a question about the pieces that are hanging by the trees. Yeah, you have three of them. and just what, they're beautiful. My question was, do birds like run into them? Do they pull like the threads to build nests?
I haven't had that happen.
Okay.
You can't actually see it in the picture, but the cable is pretty thick. So it's actually very visible, or would be visible to them. Yeah, it's about a 1/4 inch wire, just one that goes all the way across. So far, haven't seen anything. Yeah, I hope so. They could sit there. Yeah.
Very cool. So what's next? Could you tell us what any plans for this upcoming year and this year?
I have a big project coming up I'm really excited about for the trustees in Massachusetts. I'm doing another outdoor piece. It's not going to be done until next summer. But if you ever get to the middle of Massachusetts, this random hiking trail called Rock House Reservation, we're doing a couple pieces around the state for their triennial. So there's 2 other artists and me working on sculpture pieces that'll be outside for the whole year after that. I'm doing a piece between this really big and beautiful boulder, glacially deposited boulder formation. So it's almost like a little house that you walk into. And I'm planning on having this giant hand reaching in from above the boulders. I'm going to resin cast the silk fabric around it after I paint on it so that it's transparent. You can see almost like a glacier that it's holding all of these pieces that it would have picked up from the land. And it's going to reach in, hard to describe without the image. And I'm going to have these cut pieces kind of curving down the walkway like a water ripple, layered up. And then I'm going to try to play with a little bit of sound here, make shell chimes, something that can blow and move the suspended water ripple pieces so that it really looks like the hand is reaching down and creating the ripple when you walk underneath it. That's next year.
Well, what about performances? Are you organizing any more performances?
Performances, I don't have any plans for it right now. Nothing in the winter. I will probably do another iteration of this performance come spring or summer next year, but unsure as of right now. Right now I'm trying to make more art.
Yes. Anybody else have any more questions? Yes?
Is writing part of your process?
A little bit, but I never really show anybody my writing. I come up with the stories and questions for myself a lot of the time. Occasionally, little poems, but I write more than I sketch, actually. And I've thought about showing that or trying to incorporate it a little bit more, but I'm so much more of a visual person that I'm not as secure with my language.
I was thinking it's part of your process, like it seems like language and storytelling.
Right. Yeah. I thought that too. And it's like, it's okay. Maybe sound is the way I get around that, having to actually say any words about it.
Anybody else? Yes?
Have you thought about children's books?
Yeah, I've done a bunch actually. Mostly for the language program. I would love to do more though. That's where I started. I went to school for illustration. So that was my intention after getting out of school, was to do children's books. And then I realized I like the large scale work a little bit more.